Those of you listening to this tape, please join in with this practical project we're going to have this morning in this group. Fortunately, you can listen to the tape over and over and get it if you don't get it the first time. People are always asking what to do about this problem or that difficulty or this confusion. And there is something you can do, but the problem is you don't remember to do it. You are so overwhelmed emotionally by the crisis, by the unexpected event, and carried away by it that you just don't remember what you could have done had you been more alert, more awake. So you're going to do a little bit of note writing this morning as an aid to remembering what you can do for yourself when a crisis or a problem comes up. Take your paper and write at the top of it, my situation, just those two words, my situation. You can revise these notes later if you want, just enough to remember what you're supposed to do. And those of you in this room, I want you to work on this so that you have it for us tomorrow, the results of your work. At the top of your page, you have written my situation. Now, right underneath that, write whatever situation or condition bothers you, keeps you separated from yourself, puts you out of control. In other words, a problem, a difficulty. And I'll give you an example, and you can write this down as an example, get your own, which is, your example is, I am emotionally upset frequently. Now there, in a simple sentence, you have written down what your problem is. Now you've identified it, you've seen it, you know clearly what it is. You're emotionally upset quite often. I'll speak slowly so that you can write. Just that much for now. Now, go down a couple spaces and right underneath that, write constructive comments. This is helping you to think properly, to remember things properly, so that they can help you when you need them, instead of you going off into far countries of anger or emotion, whatever it might be. So now, what you're going to do between now and tomorrow, and bring to class tomorrow, are 10 constructive comments about this situation, the situation being that you're upset emotionally quite often. Now, I will bring some examples out, which you can write down or not as you please, because this is simply examples. Problem being, I am upset frequently. Constructive comment. 1, I must not blame others for being upset. If you want, you can just remember these or write them down if you want. 1, I must not blame others. Now you're taking responsibility for it, are you not? 2, my task is to use this upset in a different way. What a wealth of material you have just there alone. I'm going to use it in a different way. Instead of being carried away, I'm going to use it in ways I have learned in this class or reading good books about how to handle it properly. 3, I must not be a slave to this upsetting condition. 4, I'm going to study it instead of being carried off by it. Now that's enough examples, because you'll get the idea. You think of anything you want that would help you to remember what to do the next time you get emotionally upset, the next time you get disturbed. I don't care what it is. Disturbance is disturbance. And once you get this list, don't just write it down, then put it in your pocket or purse and bring it to class. You look at it a little bit so that you see how you can refer to these things mentally when you're walking down the street and get upset by something, so that you can do this work in your mind instead of with paper and pencil, so that you can catch yourself at odd moments and not, as I said, be carried off, but to think properly toward the problem. So list 10 of them and bring them to class tomorrow. Those of you who can't be here for some reason, bring it the next time you can and give it to me. Give it to me. Then I'll do something with it after that, which will be to have you read it aloud, probably. Any questions or comments on that? So that's what we'll do tomorrow, and you'll have two things to do, one, because you have another thing for us. All right? Now you can put your paper and pencil away. The big problem is we don't see ourselves as we are. Therefore, we don't see how we become a burden to other people. Most of your contacts, of you right here in this room, consists, whether you were aware of it or not, and I hope we can get aware of it, consists of being a burden to other people. You are a burden to people. Remember we talked about helping other people bear their burdens? Well, this connects with that. First, we have to see that we're not helping them at all, but we're putting another weight on their shoulders. You won't believe me at all. But let's just out loud, I'll try to think of some examples for it. When I pour my troubles out onto you, I'm being a burden to you. And you can hardly wait till I stop talking so you can be a burden back to me to tell me your troubles, which you think are far more weighty than mine are. The expression on your face, because you're asleep and go around with a sour look on your face or a negative look, that is a burden to everyone you meet. And you don't even know it because you're asleep. And the opposite is not to go around with a fixed smile, is it? Try to be aware of what you are and how this what you are affects other people. And you can spend the rest of your life working on that, because we don't see how freely what we say and what we do and how the expression on their face and how the gesture is simply a mechanical sleeping man who is trying to prove himself by behaving in a certain way. Like giving advice, for example. Why do you give advice to anyone about anything? On certain levels it's quite necessary. Mechanical advice, how to fix the car. Someone asks you how to fix their car, then it's good to tell them that. But even then you have to be very careful that you don't have a wrong feeling in there. Well, he should pay me for giving the advice. Or see how generous I am with my time in telling him how to fix his car. You are going to have to find out for yourself how, instead of being sunshine to other people, you're actually putting a weight on them. I'll tell you another way, and maybe this will hit home on some of you. You may have ways, quite unknown to yourself, as to how you intimidate other people. If you feel intimidated by the world, you will intimidate other people where you get the opportunity. You may not get many opportunities because you may feel that everyone has power over you. You find out how you behave towards someone. Now you listen to this, and you people listening to this tape, listen to this. How do you behave toward people that you can be cruel to and get away with it. Because you have some kind of authority, maybe parental authority, or the authority of the school teacher or whatever. How do you behave toward people that you have authority over? You should be ashamed of yourself the way you behave. That is being a burden to people, and you think you're so wonderful and give them so much. You give what you are, so the question is, what are you? What kind of a human being are you? I know, do you? As a secondary project, just think a little bit about how you cause trouble to other people by being the kind of a person you are, and not even knowing that you do it. That's it. You're asleep. You don't know it. Because you blab mechanically and brag mechanically. Because you have a certain kind of a look on your face. Maybe a slight sneer. If I ever see sneers on the faces of anyone in this group, they will be told about it. Because you are sneering at the truth, not at me or at anyone else in this group. And it's because, by the way, it's because you're afraid. And this is the only reaction you know. It's because you're afraid, we know that. The two go together. And I've told you, by the way, also about contempt for anyone. Don't you dare have contempt for anyone. Not because you're wonderful, because you have seen how terrible you are, and therefore have no criticism for anyone else. You may see how terrible other people are, but only after you've seen how terrible you are. For heaven's sake, wake up. Now find out what that means. We'll spend the rest of our lives doing it. All right, let's discuss the idea of being a problem maker, a problem causer. Because if I cause trouble to you, I am suffering from it. I am suffering from it. But I like the suffering I cause because this is all I know. Without my suffering from causing trouble, going out and screaming in the streets and other idiotic things, without this I wouldn't know what to do with myself. I'd get up in the morning and feel so empty. Comments? Questions?
Yes, you said to be aware of how you affect other people. My question is, why should I be concerned about other people?
Because for the first time in your life, you're being properly concerned with your own deliverance. The two are one.
That's really the answer.
Right.
I'm concerned about what I'm doing with my life. Really, the two go together.
No difference. No difference.
I mean, I affect them is not my concern, really. It's how I am affecting myself, which will combine with...
All right. Now let me ask you a question, Sally. What you said is right. Now connect it with the word conscience. We've discussed conscience before. Add that to it. Do you understand the question? If you have a conscience toward yourself...
Right. I will have a conscience towards other people, because the two must go together. It's one thing.
Right. That's very good. If I don't have any conscience toward me, I'm not going to have any toward you. Destruction is destruction. I destroy me by behaving stupidly. I destroy you. Which is, by the way, we learn to keep certain people out of our lives when we get onto these things, because we see that they never will have a conscience. What they have is their system of morality. And their system of morality is fear of getting caught, fear of the law, fear of losing the benefits we have toward the other person. How many people are in relationship with another person and behave what they call kindly or considerate toward them simply out of fear of losing the benefits they're getting from that other person, which is not conscience, but selfishness, egotism. Good comment.
That's what I was getting at. If we're concerned about the other person, that's really a wrong move.
All right.
Without being concerned rightly.
Who will add, you can if you want, Sally, but anyone, add the idea of sentimentality toward another person, which is not conscience. What is sentimentality is false? Who will discuss it?
I feel self-pity for myself, and when I meet someone else that has self-pity for me, and he also, since he has self-pity for me, he has self-pity for himself, and we kind of get together.
Right. Yes.
Real pity of another person is to see them with the same sickness that I have and recognize it within me.
That is very good.
Right.
Excellent. Yes. Yeah.
What Rudy just said about the self-pity, his self-pity of the other person, that would be adding a burden to the other person.
It would, yes. That's a good connection. He made a connection there. When I'm sentimental toward you, I am a burden to you because it's a false thing. Anyone who lies to another person is a burden to that other person. Right? What could be clearer? Anyone who lies to you has become a burden to you. Therefore, part of our task is to detect lying when we see it. And it was just said, see how I lie, then I'll see how you lie. I won't see how you lie as long as I'm hiding my own lies from myself. Now we're both destroying each other in the name of God or social progress or whatever. We're destroying each other, which is what the whole world is doing.
There's violence and sentimentality, because if it's thwarted in any way, then there's
Right.
hatred,
Right.
desire for retaliation.
The point was made, in case you didn't catch it on the tape, was that violence and sentimentality are the same thing. Sentimentality is not love at all. Sentimentality simply has self-interest in back of it. And you know one of the greatest false rewards of sentimentality? The self-dramatization in it. Watch a person who's telling you how concerned they are for this group of people or that group of people or for this person. And they will be the center of the stage for the moment, the actress or the actor on stage, telling you how wonderful, what a wonderful person they are. Who suffers? Who suffers when I am a burden to you? I do. Remember, we come back to this point quite frequently because we don't really see it. You know, if any of us saw quite clearly this fact that Sally brought out, that it's just one thing, even the pain is one thing. If we saw that, we would stop immediately deceiving other people, tricking them in order to get what we want from them. Tricking them. That's what it amounts to. Tricking them in order to get what we think we need, but the need is false. So the tricking is unnecessary. But as long as we think we have this separate ego that needs to be added to, and you can't add to it because it doesn't exist, this separate self, as long as we think we need to confirm it, affirm it, we will trick other people in order to try to get an affirmation for this ego, which is an endless hell. You understand this?
Mm-hmm.
So if I see that the ego is indeed a fictitious thing, why do I have to try to get anything from you? I don't anymore. Isn't this a relief to me? Now I don't have to tell lies anymore. And I don't have to remember the lie I told in order to tell it again in the same way. See what a relief that is? Is this clear to you?
Yes.
To you?
I think so.
Comments, questions? If By the way, do speak up loud and clear for the sake of the tape.
For many years, I have wanted to dream up a no-think pill. I think right now that if I could eliminate the lies that I tell, my thinking would slow down sufficiently into a rest.
Yes. Wouldn't you feel a lot better, to put it in the simplest possible language? You'd feel a lot better, would you not?
Yes.
Well, yes, you would, because you feel bad when you're under the burden of playing the role. What a burden it is to remember the stage lines, to remember to keep the proper mask on, to smile at the right time. Or you could be acting quite diligently, so to speak, if you have a frown on your face. Because sometimes the proper mask is a frown, but it's still a mask, and it's not you at all. We're always so concerned with how, here am I sitting here, how am I going to keep my role in place in far as you're concerned? So that you don't see through me, and so that you like me, and so that you won't leave me, and so that I feel comfortable with you, and you with me. We are here to destroy all this nonsense and this stupidity that keeps us on stage. I want to get off stage. Then you can be in my life or be out. It's up to you. Sally is ready.
No, I was just going to say, if I put on a role so that other people I will affect other people, then obviously I'm affected by other people's roles.
Right. You're the victim of their roles.
Right.
And you'll be gullible. And you know what? You'll be taken by them. Mm-hmm. And it's your own fault. How many of you here, both listening to this tape and in this room, have ever been the gullible victim of another person? Maybe someone of the opposite sex, maybe a swindler of the same sex. You know why you got taken? Because you wanted to take them, and for no other reason. You know the old saying, you can't cheat an honest man? That's a fact. You can't cheat an honest man. You can only cheat someone who wants to cheat you. Because that's the level, the one level. Make up your mind, all of you. Say, regardless of what happens to my relationship, to other people in my life, regardless of what happens to it, I'm going to start being true. Boy, it's going to cause some upsets, I'm telling you. You're not doing it to cause an upset. Don't you do anything with other people. You do something for yourself. Then it's their responsibility to react toward your resolve to be a true human being. That's their responsibility, not yours. I'm going to be true. And the minute I say that, I will get afraid. Because now maybe you will leave me. Maybe you won't join me in stupid coffee and coffee cakes every 10 o'clock in the morning when we get our housework done for a while. Thank heaven you're not going to waste your time blabbing anymore with your neighbor. You've got energy and time for your own inner work. All kind of things will happen to you. And you have to have the courage to let them happen. To let everybody on God's earth leave you if they want to do that. You don't push anyone away, you don't invite anyone. Isn't it a marvelous thing to say, I'm going to be true to truth, and stop right there? That's all I have to do. That's all you have to do. I'm going to be true to truth, period. But now you have to find out what that means. And you have to go a long, long, long ways. And that's why we're here today, and we'll be here tomorrow, to find out what it means to be true, and to go through all the shocks and jolts that are necessary to attain this state, so that I'm not afraid of losing you anymore. And I emphasize that point because I know how how important it is. That is, how dreadful it is to fear losing someone in your life. You make up your mind you're going to have the courage, if necessary, to lose everyone. And this is what it means to stand alone. You'll have friends, but your relationship to them will be on a true basis, not on the basis of lying and of hypocrisy and of trading. So that person can walk in or out. What do you care? You're free of them because you've freed yourself from your own false needs of them. See, neurotics need neurotics. Sick people need sick people. They can't live without them because they are affirming your sickness, which you call health. It is also true that birds of a feather flock together. We got a new phrase. You say to yourself, no more! Exclamation point. No more. And if you can take it, you'll make it. Now I'll tell you something real nice. You won't be lied to in this group about anything at all. Isn't that wonderful? You won't be lied to. You've been lied to all your life by everyone you've ever met. From the day you were born, you have been lied to. People have put burdens on you. And then, of course, you turned around and did the same thing to them, because this is all you knew, lying and putting burdens on other people, and causing them trouble, hurting them, being cruel to them. Here, we are getting the truth that rids us of this self-torment that we've been living in all our lives. It is beautiful, it's wonderful. And I'm not speaking sentimentally at all. I'm just speaking factually. Boy, take a deep breath and thank God that you are here. And those of you listening to this tape, thank God that you're listening to it. Because this is the way out. And there's no other way. You'll never find it. Make up your mind that you want out. The way of truth, that is, not the way necessarily of this group or of this talk, but the way of truth with a capital T. Now you will get a new feeling. Let me ask, how many of you have this new feeling? I don't have to define it. Do any of you have a new feeling? Huh? All right. I didn't say it was 20 feet tall. It might be 1 inch tall.
Millionth of an inch?
A millionth of an inch, that's good enough. Great. See, look, how are we doing on the time? Okay for that? Look, follow this. It's very tricky. In order to find the truth, you must be very desperate. You must be sick and tired of being sick and tired. Fact. That's a fact. However, you must go beyond that to a second step to see that the desperation you have is a barrier. Right? Because desperation itself is a wrong state. But you have to come as you are, which is desperation. And you're hiding it from me and from others. Oh, you're not hiding it from me. You're hiding it from yourself and other people because you're ashamed to admit that you're not the knowledgeable person you're pretending to be. And certain people say, people who are teaching mental health, they're in a terrible state. Terrible, because they would have to first admit that they don't know what they're talking about. All right. So I have to come as I am, which is desperation, which is agony, which is torment. Must, because that's all I have. I have nothing else to come with. So I come with that. Then, most importantly, I have to begin to see that I have to give up my desperation, because this desperation is egotism. Desperation and egotism are one thing. Desperation means I think I exist as a separate person who's been persecuted by this terribly sick world. I thought I'd get a 50,000 a year employment by going to college, and it was turned down. I can't even find work as a street sweeper. Now I'm bitter and desperate. I have to give up the idea that the world owes me anything at all, because it doesn't. There is no me and the world to begin with. There's only one thing, which is me, which is the world. There's no me as opposed to the world. I want to see your hands. Do you understand this, or don't you? If you do, raise your hand. There is no me opposed to the world. That is what I have to see. And when I do that, all desperation disappears. There's no ego there at all. There's no fictitious self there at all to fight the world, to get anything from the world. What happens to my desperation when I see this? Gone. Gone forever. Because now there is no opposite at all to me. And never was, by the way. But in my wrongly used imagination, I didn't see this. In my misinformed mind, I didn't see this. So, I must come with my desperation, because that's all I can do. I have no other way to come. Then I must begin to die to my desperation, which means dying to the fiction that I have a separate self, which can do something. See? I can't do a thing because I don't need to do a thing except to see, except to understand. Then you tell me what problems I have in this world. I have none at all. I don't solve 99% of my problems. I solve them all because I have solved the 100% source of my problems, which was me. And my ideas that I have to get something, do something. That I have to keep you in my life in order to prevent myself from being lonely. Keeping you in my life in order to prevent myself from being lonely is what keeps me feeling lonely. I'm just as lonely with you around as I am if you were gone. But I don't know it. I've covered it up. Okay? I have to face the crisis of seeing that I am not self-assured at all, that I'm not confident, that I'm a big phony about it all. Boy, then my desperation will come up to full blast, won't it? Won't it? So it is very good for me every time I have a crisis of any kind, financial, emotional, social, sexual. Every time I have a jolt from you or from society as a whole, or a jolt from my own mind, that is very valuable to me. And I'm going to use it rightly from now on. And this is why we had the exercise at the beginning. To remember when these crises come, to turn in the right direction, to think on these things, to think properly toward the crisis, and to see that there is indeed something I can do. Then later on you will see that it was not, this is very advanced, that it was not me doing it all, but a whole cosmic right movement that was doing it. Because when this lady does something right toward a crisis, it is the same as this lady is doing, and this man is doing, and this man is doing. Because rightness is one thing. Therefore you could say, I am doing a right thing, but that you is not an individual you at all. It is truth with a capital T doing it. See? So rescue is just one process. Not me, my rescue, as opposed to yours. Otherwise you'll start your church and I'll start mine and we'll fight. So there's no individual rescue, it's one thing. Okay, comments? Look, I'll comment. Psychologically, not physically. Walk away from the whole mess. Walk away. And you will see how scared you are. which is necessary. Walk away, which is the same thing as dropping it, the same thing as letting go. Because unless you see how scared you are, you can't go on from there. How terrified you are. Those of you listening to this tape, I have never met. Well, I've met a few of you maybe, but most of you I haven't met. But I will tell you something about yourself. You are terrified human beings, aren't you? You know you are. It's not a criticism, it's just a fact, and that's something we can work with, that you are terrified. Now let's go on from there and get rid of the terror once and for all, instead of deceiving ourselves about it. Walk away from the mess. And at the same time, you understand this, I'm sure, as you walk away, as your terror grows, your understanding grows. And that understanding destroys the terror. Hands, do you understand a little bit? Because you are now becoming conscious of your terror. And awareness, consciousness is the answer to see it. Once I see what a terrible state I'm in, I can work intelligently on it. This is what it amounts to. I can't work intelligently with a lie. You can do just one thing with the lies you have been living in all your life, and that is to suffer from them. And if that's what you want, then just go right ahead and continue to suffer from the lies you've been telling yourself and other people all your life. But if you don't want to pay the price anymore, great. This is the way out. Yes.
As the lie walks out of the sentence, it makes room for the truth to walk in.
Okay, very good. Makes room, that's a good way to put it. Throw the junk out of your cupboard, you got room for new things in the cupboard. But you can't put both in at once. It just doesn't work. Light and darkness can't occupy the same space. Throw out the first step. Throw out the junk. Now you won't throw the junk out as long as you're calling it jewels. And this is what the world is doing, calling junk jewels. Call junk junk. When you call it junk, you'll see it as junk. Instead of putting a false label on it, you'll see it as junk. And then you'll be so eager to throw it out because you'll see that what a burden it's been to you. I don't want to carry bricks on my back, do you? Yes.
Everyday mechanical complaining is not desperation.
Say that again, what?
Everyday mechanical complaining is not desperation.
Explain that a little better, will you?
For example, if I complain every day, I take that as being desperate. That I'm in a desperate state, but it's nothing but mechanical complaining and just going round and round, not wanting to stop complaining.
All right, will you explain a little bit the idea of loving our complaints and why it has to end? Can you explain
Well,
it?
I can give an example that I see myself complaining about the same thing all the time. People are the cause of me not being in a better state or not being happy. So I complain. I see that I'm complaining and I tell myself, well, I shouldn't complain. In a couple of seconds more, I find myself complaining again.
All right.
So I see myself complaining all the time, and I sort of get a feeling that this is desperation, but it's not, because it's just complain, which still I'm seeking something, that I want something from other people.
Right, right. Which, yes, go ahead. All right, stop it one and we'll go on. We're going to discuss on the second half of the discussion the idea of ego competition. Remember the phrase ego competition. Let's see what it, first of all, let's see what is meant by it. The whole thing is phony. Because, as we've learned, and maybe this is new to some of you listening to this tape, but you listen to this because it's the very key to the whole problem and the key to the solution too. And I'm going to say it just as if no one has ever heard it before so that you won't miss it. And I want you to refer back to this particular point quite often. When you replay this tape, think about what you're going to hear from now on. The fact is, there is no such thing as a separate self, as a separate ego. There is no such thing as Tom Smith or Mary Jones, the individual. And to even begin to understand this is very difficult, which is why we have to work real hard. You do not at all exist in the way you think you do. We have gained this delusion, and it is a delusion. We have gained this delusion of being a certain kind of a person by many ways. Since we were born, we've had these labels put on us that we're either a good person or a bad person, or that we're good because we belong to a certain race, or bad because we belong to another race. All these are mere ideas, words, labels, and experiences which, put all together in a bundle, make up what we have called me, I. Now follow this like you've followed nothing else, because this is the very heart of it. Having acquired this batch of labels about myself, I take it as me. Now I'm in deep trouble, because I am afraid that if this so-called me comes to an end, I won't know who I am, therefore I'll be in terror. And so I spend all of my life trying to prove a fiction, a myth. And how can you prove a myth? You can't. But this is what we have been doing most of our life, trying to prove that I'm either wonderful or that I'm bad, which are mere words. And above the words wonderful or bad is a reality with a capital R, which is above good and bad, rich or poor, intelligent and stupid, which is above these things, which is the real nature of my being. But I can't begin to rid myself of the delusion until I understand the nature of the delusion. And it's tremendous work simply to begin to see through it, because everything in me is going to resist seeing this truth, because I'm afraid if I see it, I will have to give it up and I will die. That is, die psychologically. But to die psychologically is my deliverance, my salvation, call it what you want, instead of my hell. I'm in hell because I'm clinging to the fiction that I am this or that kind of a person who must then run around, chase around, trying to prove it. And it can't be proved. And this is my hell because I suspect it can't be proved. But I don't know what else to do. I'm in terrible shape. I don't know what to do. So I put on a stage act of being happy and successful, or of knowing the truth. That may be part of my act, to tell you that I know the truth and teach you. All the time I'm in secret torment. Now, I'm going to repeat it. Listen. I not only do not have a separate self, a separate ego, which is apart from you and opposed to you, and here's my heaven. I don't need to have one. I don't need one. In other words, I don't need the fiction, the falsehood, that I am me and you are you. And if I saw this, I would cease being a burden to you. Because the reason I'm a burden to you, very subtly, not openly, I put the bricks on when you're asleep. I put the bricks on your back. I take them off my back and put them on your back when you're asleep. And then when I'm asleep, you come and take the bricks off and put them on my back again, which is society operating. When I see that I don't exist at all in this false way, every problem I have is solved, as was said earlier. Not 99%, 100%. Gone. I'm out. I'm free. I'm out of it. So ego competition is false to begin with, because there's no ego here to compete with this gentleman or with this lady. There's nothing to do except to see that there's nothing to do. Then I am. Then I exist properly, that is, in non-illusion, in oneness with the whole, with the all. Which means regardless of how you behave toward me, I will behave properly toward you, because I'm not living in the illusion that I must compete with you in any way at all. There is no one there to compete. Now I want you to start thinking, those of you sitting in front of me here, to start thinking of contributions you can make to this discussion, which will be caught on the tape, that will connect with what we've talked about. You can ask a question if you want, or make a comment. But let's concentrate on the fact that there's nothing there to be proved. There's no one there. But I'm still going to be here. I'm talking to you right now. I know that I don't have a separate self apart from you. You may know you don't have a separate one apart from me. And we're both here, talking. See, it's the fear of death that bothers us. Let us see what it means to die. And then do it in fear and trembling if necessary, but let's do it so that we finally come out on the other side, which means, please add to this out loud, which means, when I come out on the other side, go through this whole thing, understand it, work hard, not be afraid of it, come back when my feelings get hurt, and so on. And I come out on the other side, I come out as a sane human being, as a human being with a conscience, as a human being without conflict, as a human being without self-concern. What else?
As a human being without self-interest.
Without self-interest.
As a self that can look at the mask that I've worn all of my life.
Right.
As a human being who is no longer contributing to the insanity of the world.
Very good. She said, as a human being who is no longer contributing to social insanity.
As a human being with true compassion.
As a human being with true compassion. As a human being who's no longer fighting himself all day long. Doesn't that hit home? Does that hit home to those of you listening to this tape? You've been fighting with yourself all day long, haven't you? In the last 24 hours, you've just been fighting with yourself. You thought you were fighting with that other person or with society. You've been fighting with yourself, haven't you? If you ceased to fight with yourself, you would have no quarrel with anyone out there, because there would be no one out there.
Yes.
Physically, there may be.
As a human being who has really started to live.
Really started to live. After maybe 30, 40, 60, 70 years of neurosis, which we called health.
Free of pain.
Free of pain.
That the false pain I suffered was just another act on my stage of phony life.
Very good.
As a non-competitive human being.
As a human being who has nothing to get, but only someone to be.
As a human being who doesn't have to prove.
All right? Now we have a tremendous subject in front of us here. Ask questions about it. Make comments. Yes.
You mentioned some of the things that we some of them we fool ourselves in such a way that we don't even notice it. You mentioned that earlier. This past half week, I found myself in a lot of absurd situations, and I said to myself, well, now you're working on yourself. Notice it. It's absurd. Don't let it overcome you. Nevertheless, all these things did overcome me, and I fought myself. So what I was really doing is merely deceiving myself. Is that correct?
Yeah, oh, yes, yes, yes.
I mean, in other words, if I was really working on myself, the situations wouldn't exist, but they were still there and came
Yes.
back and back and back.
Let's always remember that self-deception is always involved with any problem we might have. Starting with the self-deception that there is someone there who has to prove something, to be someone. Watch two people arguing. Watch it and watch the facial, the little tension, watch the flashing eyes, watch the angry words. What are you seeing? On this side and on this side, you're seeing two human beings who are suffering, who think they have to prove themselves, who think they have to win the argument, and of course you never win. When you so-called win an argument, you just get an ego thrill, which means you've just led yourself deeper into the lie and into the torment than you were before. Because this is on the mechanical level, therefore every time you repeat a mechanical negativity, you harden it more, therefore you're farther away from the trail, the path, therefore it's harder to come back. See why it's important to snap this right now? Let's not get any deeper into this neurosis. No more. Stop it right now. You know people in your life who are so hardened they'll never make it out, don't you? I do. Yes.
Ever since you started talking, I have noticed that in my mind, there have been all sorts of objections coming up, that this is too complicated, that I can't do this alone, and all sorts of things. Is this a form of self-deception?
Yeah. What you're doing, let's track it down a little bit. I'll repeat her question, then we'll go into a little bit. She said while we were discussing this that the thought came to her mind, the thought came to her mind that this would be too difficult, too complex. Listen, too difficult for who? It's certainly too difficult for illusion. And if you're living from illusion or from false eye, not only difficult, it's impossible. Because you are thinking about it. And we're learning to be above thought. We've said 1,000 times that thinking about it is a very elementary stage. And the project you were giving at the beginning of this class was very elementary, but it's a good one. It helps us to think properly on the everyday plane, everyday level, and most people can't even do that. So when you say it is complicated, that's just the thought level saying it's complicated. Now, I tell you, it's not just complicated on the mental level, it's impossible. You can't think your way out. You can end thought and be out. Now, let me see your hands if this is clear. Tell the truth. Tell the truth.
I like to add a comment to
Yes.
what you said. That's very complicated. A few years back, there was the same thoughts to my mind. Very complicated. Complicated to who? Complicated to my false wisdom. The intelligent label Juan. The Juan that had always been trying to compete in ego competition. That is the one that's complicated to.
Right.
So, to arise about the thought of them.
If these things are complicated, and if we eventually do grasp some of them, then we just keep the complication in our mind because we get a thrill out of grasping the complicated idea.
Would you repeat that?
If we insist that these are complicated, obviously we must understand some parts of it, or we couldn't come, and that we lead ourselves in a circle. We chasing our tails.
All right, go ahead.
All my life I felt that I won, just a foolish feeling. In actuality, so many times did I defeat myself. If I think this is too complicated for me. Again, I've done the same thing I've done for 50 years, is self-defeat. Another false title.
Yes, that's very good. What he's saying is that even, well, we've said it many times, even despair over this is a wrong move, isn't it? All right.
Elation's a wrong move.
Elation is a wrong move. And there's another feeling which is true, which is neither elation or despair, which is simply understanding. That feeling is tremendous and true and right. Going around in circles is quite common at the beginning. When you begin to see that you can't think your way out and learn what we're trying to learn here, to get above thinking, then thinking falls away and the answer comes. Because thinking cannot supply the answer. You have no business feeling in despair over your inability to grasp this, because there is still poor stupid you who can't grasp this. And you love being stupid you, because without being stupid you wouldn't know who you were. Stop loving being stupid you. And it's opposite of being brilliant you. It's just as stupid to be brilliant as it is to be stupid.
We might say with words that we are stupid, but inwardly we pretend we're not.
We love
Yeah, that's right.
Or I'll
Yeah.
say it with anger, because I want to be the intelligent me. You know, I was thinking hard this morning about proving. I've spent my life trying to prove that I'm at least as good as others, but hopefully better. And it's such a terrible toll on physical and mental and emotional, and it takes energy away from practical work,
Right.
as well as any kind of work I can do on myself. And I find myself proving it in my own mind. It doesn't have to be there doesn't have to be anyone else in the room for me to try to prove it to, but in my own mind, where I'm comparing. So many things connect with this, I see. I'm comparing myself to others, and I either come out wanting, which makes me depressed, or I come
Or
out
superior.
better, which makes me...
Yeah. All right. Now, go ahead, Sally.
But we're always proving to ourselves, no matter if we're trying to prove to another person,
Right.
we're still proving to ourselves.
Right.
Right.
All right. Now, who will explain to me in a nice, clear voice why you lose when you win on the social level? Why do you lose when you win? You understand what that means.
Yeah.
Rudy.
We wanted the elation of winning, but that elation is just going to wear off in no time. And down we are again.
It's on the level of identity. I won. Next day, I lose. Right? That should be clear now. You had your hand up.
Yes, why do we lose when we win, all right? I get in a big argument with somebody with words. That's all it is, words. And I say I have won. Then I go on to strive for bigger competition to be the above average, where in reality, when the disillusion comes, I'll fall so far, the crash will be so hard, I won't know where I am.
Right.
And we're trying to decrease the illusion of ego, and winning would only really increase it.
Either winning or losing increases the egotism. It's the same thing. You know, when you gamble, for example, a person gambles, he gets equal ego affirmation, so-called ego affirmation, by losing as by winning, because you get a thrill by losing. You ever notice that? There's just as much falseness in losing as in winning. Both ways. There's no difference, because both come back to give you a feeling. Saying in exaltation, I won, is the same thing as saying in depression, I lost. You love the feeling. You love the feeling, and you don't care which one it is, as long as you get the feeling. We have to give all that up. Feeling of exaltation or of depression.
And society asks so much of me for this. I leave from somewhere, go to Vegas to gamble. As soon as I get back, anyone I'll see will either say, did you win or did you lose? They expect me to play their role. to play a role for them.
Yeah.
You're right. Either way, you get that feeling. You like the feeling of losing or winning, because both of them are there,
Right.
right?
Yeah, let me add something else. Yes, Juan, that's right. If any of you get bawled out in the group or anywhere, at work or anywhere else, watch your reaction to it. And if you feel bad over getting bawled out, where did the incident fall on? Huh? You get bawled out and you feel bad about it. This is what we're talking about. Don't you know you got a thrill out of being bawled out? Whether you understand or not. Or rather, I should rephrase that. You get a thrill out of the reaction that you had of being bawled out. It fell on a false sense of self. And you react, and to prove it, here's what you are mentally, silently saying. What right do you have to talk to me that way? Why should you embarrass me that way? You know what I mean, the hostile reaction. And all this is an I, you, precious you, that is reacting to it. Don't you know that you can be bawled out by anyone and not have it fall on that because you are not there anymore? Oh, you'll respond to the other person. You may well say something, and you probably should respond in some way, depending on the situation. But don't you know that you can handle it on the everyday level properly and still have no one there? Not fall on our egotism, for example? Now, I'll ask you a question again. Do you have any idea of the tremendousness, if there is such a word of this, as this? How few people even begin to go on the path that we're traveling here?
Right.
The people that you work with, maybe, your relatives. Do you see what you've got into here? Do you see?
Having the books around has helped me to see. Having the books, you know, to sell in the store has helped me to see more clearly how people really don't want it, and if people even show an interest, you soon discover that they're not really interested at all in this.
No, no. In fact, excuse me, go ahead.
That's all.
In fact, showing an interest in this can be another phony I, isn't it? Oh, and they'll tell you all the books they've read, won't they? And of the meetings they've attended in the past, the churches or study groups they've attended. That's just an I talking. Then that's the last you see of them, of course.
When you speak of bawling out, or being scolded or admonished or whatever, all the false eyes do react very, very hostile. And yet, if the bawling out is in truth, and the word correct or proper or whatever, there's a part of it that it hits and sticks.
Agreed.
It doesn't fight back.
Agreed. Agreed. Yeah. We have said that we have 99 wrong parts and one right part. It's the one right part that you're talking about, I'm sure.
Yes.
The sense is that it has to be done. We have to work. We have to take the bawling out.
Let the bawling out fall in understanding instead of that negative eye.
Okay, I will speak in truth of and for myself. I walk into these classes, I've said in common words, lay it on me. Please help me, I'm lost. You're not giving me as much as I can take, and yet when I get just a little more than to which I'm accustomed, I see how I shudder and how I shake.
True.
So my asking for the truth in itself is a bit of phony, false I in thinking that I can take more than I really can.
That's right. And that comment was made before the tape was turned on. We may think that we're far more receptive than we really are. But the seeing that we're not receptive is a part of our enlightenment, is it not? To see that I can't take as much as I assume I can. How I get stiff when you even look at me in a hard way. Even that intimidates me. See? So at least I've learned something.
May I say one more? In that respect, To me, it is like that the truth hurts, but it hurts in a good way. It hurts in a helpful way.
Yeah, sure, sure. The medicine is bitter, but it
But it
heals. Right.
I still like to go back to Regina comment on complication. That was one of my excuses. Those were excuses for me to quit on doing many things through life. It's too complicated, I quit. And when I came into this vision, the same thing was saying, complication, complication. But I have seen too many things that would not get me away from that, call it luck. But that was my excuse for when I said, we start trying it, we start trying it. I said, no, it's too complicated, I quit.
That's all part of the false self.
Yeah.
The negative false self.
Let me give you another thought in connection with all this. Listen to this now, because there's many things to think about it. One of the most magnificent things that can happen to me, to you, is to see that I have no control of myself. That I've lost control of myself. Now remember, we all live under the illusion of having control. The illusion, for example, that I can change the social system by passing laws, by preaching sermons or whatever. That I can do something for other people. I don't see what a nasty temper I have at night. I think I'm a controller of life. I go out and tell other people how to live. See how I've hidden from myself because of these walls in my mind. I don't see that I really don't have control. If you have a bad temper, you can't tell anybody anything. That means you're lost. And darkness can't give out light. Now follow. The shock, the jolt, the trembling I'm going to have to go through to see that I don't have any control of myself at all, that it's a phony stage act. I finally become aware by watching my own mind how much hatred I have for other people, how venomous I am, how critical, what a bitter critical spirit I have toward the people I smile at. If I go far enough in this, I will see I have no control over myself at all. And this is the despair of living in hell. And you have to be in it. Before I go on, I will tell you that beyond this hell is the heaven you want. But now we have to go back to hell and talk about it. Because we have to go through hell to get to heaven. Heaven being nothing more than a clear mind, understanding, consciousness. When I see, follow this, when I see I have no control of anything, daily habits, smoking, drinking, swearing, thinking evil thoughts, lying. When I see I have no control of myself, I'm on the road to truth. Because I'm destroying the illusion that there is an ego who can do anything about all these things. There is no one here who can do anything about that out there. What I call that out there. Because my thinking of thoughts of hatred while smiling at people is all there is. But this hatred, all there is, can be destroyed through persistent hard work and understanding, this hatred, which is all there is of me, can come to an end so that all there is of me is understanding. So I have to see there's nothing I can do about anything except to understand. And to understand everything we've ever talked about in these classes over the past years and today and in the future. This will help me see that there's nothing I can do but give up the illusion that there's something I can do. Which will put you right in the center of hell. Which means I'm going to have to give up pretending that I can tell you how to live your life, pretending that I can contribute something to society, which means my phoniness is going to have to go. What am I going to do? I hope you are in total despair. We've covered this, haven't we? Mm-hmm. You had better be in 100% despair. And I will tell you that's a wonderful state to be in, because without it, you'll never go beyond despair. People in 10% despair will never make it. You'll never make it. People in 20% despair will never make it. We are gathered here to be in total despair so that we can understand it and end it. There is no one here at all. There is no separate ego here at all who can do anything but give itself up. And even that is not quite the right way to put it. But to have understanding, which is above thought, interrupt thought, which is ego, understanding, interrupt it, break it, so that I see that I am not this thought of being a wonderful person who can change the world. I can't even change my terror at night. My fears, my nightmares. When I give up, there's hope for me. If I won't give up, if I won't let go, there's no hope for me. Very simple. We're here to give up, to surrender not our real nature, but our phony nature, which has punished us and lashed us and wounded us all these years. Aren't you sick and tired of being wounded? You're the one who's doing it to yourself, or I'm doing it to myself.
This is psychological thinking we're talking about. This is psychological thinking.
Would you explain?
Well, I mean, when we get a feeling that we want to build our ego up, I was just thinking that some people may misinterpret thinking that they're not supposed to think.
I see.
Practical thought is necessary.
Right.
On the everyday level, we need it.
Correct.
But it's this building of the ego, of the false self, that is the devil.
Right. That's a good point. Obviously, we have to think, or you won't know how to cook dinner.
Right.
But to think I make the best dinner in town, that is adding egotism to thought.
Right.
Competitive thinking is all wrong, in other words. We don't mind the hard work. It's the greatest pleasure on earth, right?
Right.
It's the most fun you will ever have in your life. What we're doing here, what you're doing with this. There is no other fun outside of this. None. Forget it. This is authentic fun. Ooh, you'll get so excited in the right way. Yes.
In authentic fun, a few days ago, one of the projects given was be conscious of my body when I walk down the street. Be aware that I am me. I did it fairly well until a thought angry, hostile thought took me over in the future, imaginary future, smacked right into the sidewalk and tore my toenail off. I was no more conscious than nothing. The thought that took me over at that split second, I wandered completely away from my body and my body ran into the sidewalk.
Right. You weren't being aware of where you were at the moment.
None whatsoever.
Uh-huh.
None.
That we have to work on too. We have 1 minute left. We'll end it with that.